Also, hope that you had a great day today. All right, so for today, we're going to be doing our English lesson on a grade 3 English lesson on subordinating conjunction. And before we start with our lesson on subordinating conjunction, we are going to log into aplusstudents.ca. You're going to log in with your username as well as your password. And then you're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 3, because we're doing grade 3. All right, so once you have selected the subject of language arts, grade 3, we are going to scroll down up until we get to the subject of, or the chapter of subordinating conjunction. Oh, up until we get to subordinating conjunction. Um, so in our previous lesson, we did coordinating conjunction, right? And coordinating conjunctions are words that either connects phrases, words, or it connects simple sentences. And we used words like we use words like and, but, or, and so. That was like the four basic ones that we mentioned, right? But you do also have nor, for, and yeah, it is the basic ones. So that was the coordinating conjunctions that we did in our previous lesson. So today's lesson we will be doing subordinating conjunction. All right, and under the chapter of subordinating conjunctions, we're going to focus on the lessons of identify subordinating conjunctions as well as use subordinating conjunctions. So we're first going to identify it and then we're going to use the subordinating conjunctions. All right. So with subordinating conjunction, right? Okay. So subordinating conjunctions are used to connect two simple sentences in a special way. The coordinating conjunction or the conjunctions after and before will tell you when something happens. For example, I need to return this book before the library closes. So the word before, it tells you when something happens. So once again, the subordinating conjunctions, right? Uh, are used to connect two simple sentences in a very special way, right? And then we have the words conjunctions such as after and before. And after and before, they will tell us when something happens, right? And here we have an example which says, I need to return this book before the library closes, right? So you need to return this book before the library closes, right? So before is our conjunction within that sentence. Then we also have conjunctions such as and while. And the conjunctions as and while, they tell you that two things happen at the same time. So as we lie on the grass, we look for shapes in the clouds, right? Or we can say, my brother likes to listen to music while he does homework, right? Which means that it is when something happens or two things happens at the same time, right? So, for example, yeah, we're lying on the grass. As we lie on the grass, we look for shapes in the clouds, right? Two things happening at the same time. And the second one is my brother likes to listen to music while he does his homework, right? So as and while, these are the conjunction that tells you that two things happen at the same time, right? Then we have the conjunction until. So until. So until tells you how long something takes or something lasts. So until, it tells you how long something takes or how long something lasts, right? For example, my mom told me to wait until she came back, right? So this person had to wait until the mom came back, right? So far we have the conjunctions of after and before, right? Which tells you that something happens or when something happens. Then we have the conjunction as and while, which will tell us that two things, it happens at the same time. And then we have until, right? And until, it tells you how long something takes or how long something lasts, right? Then we also have the conjunctions because and since. So we have the conjunctions because and since, right? And they tell you why something happens or why something is true, right? So because and since, it tells you why something happens or why something is true, right? And we have an example that says, I was late I was late to school because I forgot to set my alarm, right? It's telling you why the person was late, right? Because either something happened or something was true. So, I was late to school because I forgot to set my alarm. So, I overslept, right? So that is because. And then also we have since, right? So since I left my phone at home, I have to borrow my brother's because this person does not have the phone, right? So you need to maybe borrow a phone because you need to call somebody, call your parent or whoever. So since and because is used to tell why something happens or why something is true, right? And then we have the conjunction unless, right? And unless, it shows an exception. It's like an exception to something, right? So unless it is cloudy tonight, we will see the full moon, right? Or unless it is sunny, we will be able to go to the beach, So that will be, it shows an exception to something. So unless it's cloudy tonight, we will see the full moon. Unless, I mean, like, sorry, not the previous season, unless it is, let's say, windy, we will be able to go to the beach or so on. So these are subordinating conjunctions, right? And subordinating conjunctions are used to connect two simple sentences in a special way, right? So they connect two coordinating conjunction in a special way. And the conjunctions that we have mentioned was after, before, as, while, until, because, since, and unless, right? So these are the subordinating conjunctions that are used to connect two simple sentences in a special way. And each one of them connects it for a certain reason, right? And we said that after and before is used when we tell something or when something happens, sorry. So when something happens. And then as and while is used when two things happen at the same time. And then we have until, it is used how long something takes or lasts. So until is, it shows how long something takes or lasts. Because and since, it tells us why something happens and why something is true. Since, right? Because and since. And then unless, it shows an exception, right? So these are our subordinating conjunctions that connects two simple sentences in a very special way. All right. So now we are going to select the subordinating conjunction within the sentence. It says, Mom sings while she rocks the baby. So if we identify or select the subordinating conjunction within that sentence, and then we will say, while is our subordinating conjunction, right? So mom sings while she rocks the baby. So while is our subordinating conjunction within this sentence, right? So while, right? It's like doing two things at the same time, right? So while is our subordinating conjunction. Then we have Dustin is eating his lunch early since he missed breakfast, right? So Dustin is eating his lunch early since he missed breakfast, right? Which means that if we identify the subordinating conjunction within the sentence and then we're going to choose since, right? So since is our subordinating conjunction within the sentence, right? So since. So Dustin is eating his lunch early since he missed breakfast. Then we have Cassie carefully chews her food before she swallows it. So Cassie carefully chews her food before she swallows it, right? Which means that before is our subordinating conjunction within this sentence, right? And like we said, with each one of these subordinating conjunctions, they have the specific reason as to why these ones are used. Why, for example, while is used, since is used, before is used, right? And we said subordinating conjunction, it connects two sentences in a special way, right? All right, let's go to next. Until Miss Ayala explained the question, Shauna didn't understand it. So until Miss Ayala explained the question, Shauna didn't understand it, right? Which means that the subordinating conjunction within the sentence is until, right? Which means that she first needs to explain the question in order for Shauna to understand it, right? So until she explains the question, Shauna didn't understand it, right? Which means that Shauna didn't understand the question at all up until Miss Ayala explained the sentence or the question, right? So until is our subordinating conjunction within the sentence. So until Miss Ayala explained the question, Shauna didn't understand it, right? So we first had to explain the question in order for Shauna to understand it. So that is the word until. Rachel will sweep the kitchen while Ted cleans his room. So Rachel will sweep the kitchen while Ted cleans his room. So if we identify the subordinating conjunction within the sentence, then it means that we will choose the subordinating conjunction while. And while it tells that two things are happening at the same time, right? So two things are happening at the same time. So Rachel will sweep the kitchen while Ted cleans his room, right? These are showing that two things are happening at the same time, right? So the word while or the subordinating conjunction while, it shows us that two things are happening at the same time. So while is a conjunction that we have selected or identified. within that sentence, right? So Rachel will sweep the kitchen while Ted cleans his room. So while, it tells us that two things are happening at the same time. All right, let's go to one more. All right. As Kaya sang, the baby clapped his hands. So as Kaya sang, the baby clapped his hands. So we need to choose the subordinating conjunction within that sentence, right? So we will then say as. So as is our subordinating conjunction within the sentence, right? And as means it's also two things that is happening at the same time, right? Which means that Kaya sings or Kaya sang and the baby clapped his hands, right? So that is the two things that are happening at the same time. So as Kaya sang, the baby clapped his hands, right? So as is a subordinating conjunction that we have selected within that sentence, right? So sometimes it is also good to know the use of the or the reason for why you use that coordinating conjunction, because then you'll be able to quickly identify why, um, for example, that is specifically used within the sentence. All right, let's move along. Okay. Then we have unless we leave now, we will miss our train. So unless we leave now, we will miss our train. So unless, right? So unless we leave now, we will miss our train, which means that if we select the subordinating conjunction within the sentence, then we will choose the word unless, right? So which means that if they are not going to leave now, they're going to miss the train, right? So that is what the unless means. It is to show an exception, right? So if they don't leave now, they're going to miss the train, right? Or they're going to miss the train if they don't leave now, or they are going to miss the train unless they leave now. So that is what the sentence actually means. So unless we leave now, we will miss our train, right? All right. So now are those are subordinating conjunctions. So we are going to do the test now, right? And we said subordinating conjunctions are used to connect two simple sentences. So it is used to connect two simple sentences in a special way, right? And then we also identified some of the coordinating conjunctions, such as after, before, as, while, until, because, since, and unless. So now we're going to our test, right, where we are going to identify subordinating conjunctions. All right, let's begin test. All right, so after Jenna played kickball, she ate dinner with her mom. So after Jenna played kickball, she ate dinner with her mom. So we need to choose the subordinating conjunction within that sentence. Open. So if we choose a subordinating conjunction within that sentence, we are going to choose the subordinating conjunction that is after, right? Remember, we said a subordinating conjunction, it basically joins the two simple sentences, right? So after Jenna played kickball, she ate dinner with her mom, right? So we're going to choose the word after, right? Remember, we said it is words that joins the two simple sentences. Unless we leave now, we will miss our train, right? So we need to choose a subordinating conjunction. Is it we or unless? So we or unless. All right, so if we choose the coordinating conjunction within the sentence, and then we are going to choose the subordinating conjunction of unless. Yes, so unless is the conjunction within that sentence. Beautiful, right? So unless. Cassie carefully chews her food before she swallows it. So Cassie carefully chews her food before she swallows it. So is it before or her? It is the word that joins the two simple sentences. So is it before or her? So if we choose the conjunction within the sentence and then we are going to choose before. Yes, so before. So wonderful. The chocolate melted because I left it in the sun. So the chocolate melted because I left it in the sun. Right? So is it because or left? Left. We need to choose the subordinating conjunction within that sentence. Because or less. Left. The subordinating conjunction. All right, so if we select the subordinating conjunction within the sentence, and then we are going to select because. Yes, so because is correct. So well done. All right, we're going to do the last one. Until Miss Ayala explained the question, Shana didn't understand it. We need to choose a subordinating conjunction either between until or Ayala. Right, so either until or Ayala. We need to choose the subordinating conjunction that joins these simple sentences. Until or Ayala. So if we choose the subordinating conjunction, remember the word Miss Ayala is a name of a person, right? So which means that that is not a word that joins sentences, right? So which means that the subordinating conjunction that joins the sentences is until, right? So it's until. So what happens is that whenever you get, let's say, a word or an answer incorrect, right? Then what you can do is you can select or look for the correct answer, copy the link, send it to us, and you will get 100 bonus points. All right. So that was identifying subordinating conjunctions. What I'll do is I will just go over the conjunctions again in before, or let's say when going to using subordinating conjunctions. So we're going to go to use subordinating conjunctions. Or let's say before we go, let's quickly go back to identifying, right? So I will re-explain it again, right? So once again, a subordinating conjunction, right? It is used to connect two simple sentences in a special way, right? So we have conjunctions that is either after, before, as, while. Let me underline it. So after, before, as, while, until, we have because, since, and we have unless, right? So these are the subordinating conjunctions, right, that are used within sentences to connect the two simple sentences, right, in a special way. Then, if we use the conjunction, which is after and before, right? So the conjunction after and before, they tell you when something happens, right? So the conjunctions after and before, they tell you when something happens, right? Then we have the conjunctions, which is as and while, right? So the conjunctions as and while will tell you that two things are happening at the same time, right? So two things happen at the same time. So as we lie on the grass, we look for shapes in the clouds, for example, or my brother likes to listen to music while he does his homework, which means that two things are happening at the same time, and then it is joined or connected by the coordinating conjunction as and while. Then we have until, right? So until, it tells us how long something takes or lasts, right? And then we have because and since. Because and since, they tell you why something happens or why something is true, right? So that is when we use because or we use since. And then we have the last one, which is unless, right? So when we use the conjunction unless, then it shows exception, right? So these are the subordinating conjunctions that are used to connect two simple sentences in a special way. And remember, the coordinating conjunction, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle of a sentence, like for example with coordinating conjunctions, right? With subordinating conjunctions, you can even find the conjunction at the beginning of the sentence, right? Like for example, let me remove this. Like for example, like as. Here it says, as we lie on the grass, we look for shapes in the clouds. So as is used in the beginning of the sentence, right? The same here with since, right? Since I left my phone at home, I have to borrow my brother's. So since is also used at the beginning of the sentence, as well as unless. Unless it's cloudy tonight, we will see the full moon. So once again, subordinating conjunctions, right? Yes, it is used to connect two simple sentences, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that it needs to be in the middle of a sentence to show that it is joining the two sentences or connecting the two sentences. We can also find it at the beginning of a sentence, right? So that is subordinating conjunctions, right? Within a sentence. And it connects two simple sentences in a special way, right? All right. Okay, so now we're going to use subordinating conjunctions. So that was us identifying subordinating conjunctions, right? So now we're going to use the subordinating conjunctions because we first identified it and literally broke it down as to what each conjunction means and why it is being used and when it is being used, right? All right. So that was basically just the conjunctions that we used earlier on or we mentioned earlier on. So now you need to complete the sentence with the better conjunction. So now you are going to identify the conjunction on your own, right? So Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day. He enjoys spending time outside. So we need to choose, oops, yeah, we need to now use and basically select our conjunction that we think is going to fit within that sentence, right? So, Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day, right? So we can say, because he enjoys spending time outside, right? So Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day because he enjoys spending time outside, right? So because is the better conjunction that we have added within that sentence, right? So because. And we use because, let's see here also. Okay, here it says, Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day. So it's like asking yourself why, right? So it's because he enjoys spending time together, right? And remember, we said that when using the conjunction because, you need to, it basically tells you why something happens or why something is true, right? So because he loves spending time outside or he enjoys spending time outside, right? So because is our answer. Okay. I'll give our dog Lucky another bath. I'll give our dog Lucky another bath. Her coat is muddy. So I'll give our dog Lucky another bath. Her coat is muddy, right? So the word that we are adding, or the best possible conjunction that we are adding within the sentence is since, right? So since, it's also you asking why would you give the dog another bath, right? So it's since her coat is muddy, right? So I'll give our dog Lucky another bath. So it's like you're asking why, and then you basically respond since her coat is muddy, right? So since it shows or tells us why something happens or why something is true. We drove through Virginia since we didn't know how pretty it was. So we drove through Virginia. So it's like asking now, why did you drive through Virginia? Since we didn't know how pretty it was. So since is the better conjunction that was chosen or selected to fill in the missing word or to join or connect the two sentences or the simple sentences within that sentence, right? All right, let's go next, right, and do a few more examples. Next. All right. That letter can't be mailed. You put a stamp on it. So that letter can't be mailed. You put a stamp on it, right? So which means that if we choose the better conjunction within that sentence, and then we are going to choose until, right? So that letter can't be mailed until you put a stamp on it, right? So until shows, it's like asking how long, right? And then we did Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day because he enjoys spending time outside, right? All right, and then we do the last one right at the bottom. We buy tickets ahead of time, there won't be any left, right? So you need to basically, this is, and we're going to use the word or the conjunction that makes an exception, which is unless. So unless it shows or tells us, or not tells us, it shows an exception, right? So unless we buy tickets ahead of time, there won't be any left, which means that if they are not going to buy it ahead of time, then there won't be any tickets left, right? So they need to buy tickets now before they won't get any. So unless is the conjunction that is used within that sentence that shows an exception, right? And once again, unless is at the beginning of the sentence, right? It shows at the beginning of the sentence, which means that not all subordinating conjunctions are in the middle of the sentence, right? So some subordinating conjunctions you would literally find at the beginning of the sentence, but yet it will still show that it is connecting, for example, the two simple sentences, right? So, just a reminder, subordinating conjunctions, not all of them are in the middle of a sentence. That shows literally how the two simple sentences are being connected. It can also be at the beginning of the sentence, just like the example that we have over here with unless we buy tickets ahead of time, there won't be any left. All right, so now we are going to do our test on using subordinating conjunction, right? So let's go to our test. That letter can't be mailed, is it until you put a stamp on it or since you put a stamp on it. We need to choose the correct or better conjunction within that sentence or to show that the sentence is true. So is it until you put a stamp on it or since you put a stamp on it? So that letter can't be mailed. All right. So remember, we can't mail a letter, right? Until you put a stamp on it, which means that you need to put the stamp on the letter first before you mail it, right? So until it shows almost like a period of time also. So you need to first put it on. So until you put the stamp on the letter, we won't be able to mail it. Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day. Is it before he enjoys spending time outside or because he enjoys spending time outside? So Mr. Kwan goes for a walk every day. Is it before or because he enjoys spending time outside. So we need to choose the better conjunction within, or basically to complete that sentence. All right, so we are going to choose because, right? So because he enjoys spending time outside. Linda waved to her parents. Is it as she boarded the train or unless she boarded the train? So Linda waved to her parents as she boarded the train or unless she boarded the train. So if we choose the better conjunction within that sentence, and then we can say, as she boarded the train. That is when she waved at her parents. All right, so Nancy doesn't like cherries. I'll make her a blueberry pie instead. So is it while Nancy doesn't like cherries or since she doesn't like cherries? We need to choose the correct subordinating conjunction. Is it while Nancy doesn't like cherries or since she doesn't like cherries? I'll bake her a blueberry pie instead. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the word while, right? That you have selected, right? And then we'll see the outcome. So while was chosen, right? But while is incorrect, right? So remember, if we get a word incorrect, then you need to go to where you basically have to find the correct answer, copy the link, send it to us, and then you will get 100 bonus points, right? So basically, since Nancy doesn't like cherries, right, I will make her a blueberry pie. All right. So I started playing the fiddle. I played drums in the jazz band. So is it because I started playing the fiddle, I played drums in the jazz band, or until I started playing the fiddle, I played drums in the jazz band? So because I started playing the fiddle, I played drums in the jazz band, or until I started playing the fiddle, I played in the jazz band. All right, we're gonna just randomly choose one, right? You're gonna randomly choose one. So until we started playing, right? And then Sarah will be late for the game. Is it after she leaves now or unless she leaves now? We need to choose the better conjunction. So she will be late for the game. Is it after she leaves now or unless she leaves now? So Sarah will be late for the game after she leaves now or unless she leaves now. All right, so we will then say Sarah will be late for the game unless she leaves now. All right, so that is basically the subordinating conjunctions, right? And we said that we basically identified subordinating conjunctions and we also used subordinating conjunctions, right? So we said that subordinating conjunctions, it connects two simple sentences, right, in a special way, right? And remember, there's a difference between the subordinating conjunction as well as the coordinating conjunction. And also, with the subordinating conjunction, remember that you can find a subordinating conjunction at the beginning of the sentence too. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle of the sentence to show the connection between the two simple sentences. So, grade three, thank you very much for joining our lesson. Thank you very much for being interactive. I really hope that the lesson was informative and you should have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.